I don't know. Good evening, everyone. My name is Katina Taylor, and I want to first apologize to you all. We are coming to you live today, but we are coming to you a little bit later than we normally like to go live. We normally go live at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. Tech is not my friend today, so blame me. It is my fault.
I know
I
y'all thought it was mine. I know y'all thought it was mine. It is not.
So I am attempting this using my cellular device for the first time ever. So just bear with us. It is what it is. When it works, it's great. When it doesn't, oh well. We move along anyway. But this evening, first of all, let me start again and just say, hey y'all, welcome. Happy Thursday. This is the third edition of Policy Pulse, the education edition. And our title this evening is Understanding the Allegations Against, are y'all ready for this? The Kansas City Public School District. Facts, impacts, and next steps. So, take a seat, get a pen and paper, all the things you need to figure out what is going on. Cecilia, tell the people who you are, give them a quick welcome.
Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so glad that you are here. I don't know if you are like me, but even just this 30 more minutes of sun has made me so happy over the last couple of weeks. I just had a birthday, so that has made me happy as well. What else can I say? This beautiful weather that we've had in the Midwest over the last week has been lovely. We're going to get another snap, though. We know that because we are in the Midwest.
Yes.
And I say all that to say, my name is Cecilia Ananya Belzer Patton. I use the she, AI series of pronouns. I am the founder and cultural curator of Just Systems. Just Systems is at the intersections of education, policy, power, and the ways in which we sustain ourselves to move forward. So systems change. I'm pleased to be here with Katina Taylor today on Policy Pulse. We, as Katina said, are going to be talking about allegations. Allegations.
I love that you said that. Allegations. Absolutely. So, for those of you that
Remember, people are innocent and organizations are innocent until they are proven otherwise.
Absolutely. So, for those of you that may be joining us for the first time, again, welcome. We want to let you know what we do here on Policy Pulse. This is a recent launch of this broadcast. So, again, this is only our third episode. I promise you we will get better as we go. We thought it was important in the ever evolving, ever changing political climate to address what is happening at the national, state, and local levels as it relates to K 12 education. I taught in schools, in traditional public schools, charter schools, as well as private schools for 15 years. I've been a part of the education ecosystem for 25 now. Cecilia, tell people about your experience within schools.
Absolutely. I come to you as a veteran educator. I feel very proud about that. Systems that I work in that are not educational systems always make fun of me about that. They're like, here comes the teacher. The teacher is coming out. And so I have taught and been an administrator as well as an instructional coach, K through 12. So teaching at that baby level, kindergarten through sixth grade, was my very least favorite. My second favorite, I guess, would be high school. I am one of those few people that really enjoyed middle school, and so I was a middle school teacher, sixth through eighth grade. My favorite grades were seventh and eighth grade, and I love education. I also am an organizer and mobilizer of people. I work on political campaigns, so policy is my zhuzh. I love it. And I think building power in communities is really why I am central to this, and education is that. And so when I thought of ways in which I could extend my understanding of education, really building power in communities and underserved communities, communities that had disparity, was my impetus there.
Absolutely. Well, I will tell you, Cecilia, you are a special jewel in the world of education. I
As a
cut
middle
my teeth
school,
in middle school. Ooh,
it's my
that
favorite.
I can't.
I think middle school students reflect society. I think
Ooh,
some days middle school students want to be adults. On
yes,
other days, middle school students want to be babies. And they
absolutely.
just have not learned to mask that the way we have learned to mask it as adults. You know, I wake up, we just were talking about this last week. Adulting is not fun sometimes.
It is not.
And so
Absolutely. Well, thank you for letting the people know your connection to K 12 education. Oftentimes, I think, we see people, we hear people talk about issues that impact K 12 education, and we don't necessarily know what their connection to education is. So
yeah.
I think it's important for folks to know who we are, what we've done, what we continue to do, and why we are so vested in this work. So it's
Also,
time.
this, I don't want to let this go by the wayside. People don't tell, I don't talk about it enough. This core of my practices are trauma informed and restorative practices, and
Mhm.
figuring out ways in which we can provide spaces for our students and their families to really be restored back to education in ways that make them comfortable, and that we are trauma informed so that we don't inflict more harm.
Absolutely. And my sweet spot, of course, is literacy for those of you that do know me. For those that you don't know, now you do.
Right.
I certainly work to empower our children and families with the goal of eradicating literacy before I depart the earth. I am clear about that. That is my purpose. That's what drives this work. But we would be remiss if we did not tell you that Policy Pulse really is where we break down what's happening in K 12 education so you stay informed, you stay empowered, and most importantly, you stay ahead. That's the goal. So,
Yes.
again, as we said earlier, we are diving into an issue that is making headlines locally, right here in Kansas City. An allegation against Kansas City Public Schools, known as KCPS, regarding race based hiring practices. This claim has sparked debate about diversity in education, federal law, and how schools recruit and retain teachers. So
Woo!
we know, just like that, just sit there, whew, right? This is a complex and emotional topic, but our goal really tonight is simple. We want to cut through the noise and provide you with clear, objective information so you can understand what's happening and why it matters. So, always, this is a discussion. Drop your comments, your thoughts, your questions in that box, right? If you're on YouTube, like, share it out, invite others to tune in and join you. We want to know where you're watching from, why you've tuned in this evening. So let's go ahead and dive in and get started. Cecilia, you wanna tell everyone what's going on?
So there is an organization. I want to make sure that I identify them correctly. So let me go to my notes. I think that's very important. And we are actively trying, you all, not trying, we are actively committing to ensuring that we are objective, that we are providing the information, that I'm not coming here as Cecilia, my personal self. I'm coming here as Cecilia, my professional self, for us to really be provided information so that we can have knowledge around it, and so that we can be a part of the solutions of the problems that we face. And so
Absolutely.
this organization is called,
Parents defending education.
I'm there, Parents Defending Education. Parents Defending Education is an organization here based out of Kansas City that feels as if um, recruitment that is intentional about ensuring that representation is central to the recruitment and the retention of teachers, administrators, um, district level staff, is instrumental for our students and our families in the Kansas City Public Schools success and welcome is being challenged. Being challenged under the new administration and legislation around DEI. I wonder if PDE is also challenging recruitment and retention and sustainability around things like cafeteria workers, around things like custodial staff members that we all know as people who have been in school buildings are as essential to our students and our students' success as counselors, as teachers, as social workers, as anyone else, because the link is important.
Absolutely. Thank you for laying that out. So, Parents Defending Education, their acronym is P as in Paul, D as in David, E as in equality, equity, elephant. I don't know.
PDE, elephant in the room.
Right? They have filed a complaint with the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission against KCPS. And as Cecilia said, what they have claimed is that Blueprint 2030, which is the strategic plan document for Kansas City Public Schools, sets hiring goals based on race, which PDE argues violates federal employment laws. Now,
why is this important, you all,
yes,
to students and families of districts like Kansas City Public Schools? I would say not only Kansas City Public Schools, Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools, perhaps Raytown, Grandview, Hickman. Why is this important? Because oftentimes when districts have a high percentage of marginalized students and their families, they depend on federal funding.
Yes.
They depend on federal funding differently than tax-supported suburban districts, than private schools, than religious institutions, Catholic schools. They depend on that differently. And
absolutely.
So to file a complaint with the EEOC, which is federally funded, will make Kansas City Public Schools a target and perhaps put them in a space where they will not receive all of the federal funding that they have received in the past.
That's a possibility for sure. So I want to start by also making sure that people understand Blueprint 2030, right? Yes. I think that's extremely important.
Absolutely.
So that again is the strategic plan for Kansas City Public Schools. And there is a portion that states one of the goals is that our aims is to increase teachers of color to 40% by 2025 and 45% by 2030. Now, within that document, it lists those goals or those aims, and then it has associated strategies to achieve those goals or those aims. So one of the strategies, or I'm going to list the strategies. So partnerships with HBCUs to recruit diverse candidates, career pathways for non-certified staff to become teachers is another strategy. As I'm reading my notes. I want to make sure I don't leave anything out. So those are the two concrete strategies. Now, I know that KCPS also partners with non-traditional teacher prep programs like the Latinx Education Collaborative, Brothers Liberating Our Communities, Teachers Like Me, Black KC, in terms of
as well as other like teacher prep programs that are not
Teach for America, City Year. So there are national, local, regional programs that are attempting to not only diversify the teaching profession, but also ensure that enough high quality certified educators are in the classrooms with our children each and every day. So we all should know that across the country, there is a teacher shortage, a massive teacher shortage. And Cecilia, just so happens that I had the opportunity to meet with the gentleman at the state level, um, at the DESE level, who,
DESE is the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education for the state of Missouri, you all.
yes, thank you for that, because I often forget everyone won't know the acronyms.
Yeah.
But he is over the teacher recruitment advisory board group. And he and I were talking, and he said, Katina, I don't know if you are aware, there are more than half of the educators in our state are long-term subs currently, meaning these individuals have had some college, perhaps they've had some educational classes, but they are certainly not certified staff. Over half, and if I remember the number correctly, 56% of the educators that are in Missouri schools are currently long-term subs. So we are in a crisis as it relates to the education professionals. And then if you look at the demographics of Black men, Black women, Latinx education professionals, then those numbers drastically reduce. The last time I heard about Black males, 2%.
Yes. And I think Black females have the highest, Black women have the highest representation in public education, followed after white women.
No. That number has shifted recently. Because I was prepping and I said, let me look at the current data.
That's what I'm pulling up right now, Katina. So I'm glad that you're ahead of me on that.
76% of the educators in our schools across this country right now are white women.
That's what I'm saying. I was saying,
yeah.
Black women are second to white women. And
however, we are first to leave the profession. We leave more rapidly than any other demographic for a number of reasons. And if you guys want to explore those reasons, go read the report. If you listen, we will stay. That is a great one to read. That's one of the first, I think, that's done nationally around the teaching profession and people and education professionals of color.
And we should also talk about, Katina, how that is a very modern shift in that prior to organizations like Teach for America and others, the rise in charter schools in the United States, Black women educators were top of the line as far as percentage of teachers in public schools. And that started happening in the 1990s, early 2000s of the push out.
Actually, before that, think about that, because when Brown v. Board happened and integration occurred, Black teachers populated and taught in Black schools, right?
Yes.
When that happened, the result of that was that 50% of the Black educators, both men and women, lost their jobs immediately.
And we must share, my grandmother used to talk about, who is one of the best educators I've ever known, used to talk about that oftentimes prior to Brown versus the Board of Education, our children were being taught, when I say that, I mean Black children, by teachers that held PhDs, teachers that could have taught at the collegiate level and oftentimes did as well, because of segregated schools. So I have always shared, and people they tense when I say this, that oftentimes I think that Brown versus the Board of Education was the worst thing that ever happened to Black students in school, because we stopped being taught by people that lived in our neighborhoods. We were stopped being taught by people that we went to church with, people that we saw at the grocery store. And so therefore, sometimes, not all the time, sometimes there's a different level of investment when a person can drive off the parking lot of a school and never have to think about our children or see our children again.
Yeah, for sure.
In those neighborhoods.
Thank you for that, Cecilia. So we're setting the stage and kind of letting you all know why Kansas City Public Schools has these goals, has these aims built into their strategic plan. Also, because what they know is that what research and data tells us is that all children benefit from educators of color.
Every single last one.
Every one of them. Yeah. And oftentimes it has the data and the research says when they have studied Black teachers versus others that Black teachers set higher standards. We often increase the level of academic rigor, and we have an expectation that all of our children meet those goals. We have a belief in them, we have a level of mother wit, all of the things. We develop relationships in a different way,
Right?
and still children thrive in those environments. That's the research, that's the data, that is not
The research,
commentary.
that's the data. And I think from a restorative lens, not only do we center relationships, we provide high support and high control, which oftentimes in the reverse, in an authoritarian space, there is high expectations without high support,
Yeah,
high control without high support. So when you think about why people say the school to prison pipeline, is because prisons provide high control, low support. And so then you wonder why there is an automatic connection that often happens in public education, um, trajecting people to incarceration.
absolutely. So we've set the stage. We've told you what the allegation is. We've told you the specific language that's being addressed. We've explained to you why the goal or the aim is there. So now let's switch gears and talk about why this may be a concern for parents defending education, i.e., PDE.
PE.
So,
Acronyms.
yes, so they claim that these goals prioritize race over merit in hiring decisions, potentially violating Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. Now, just sit on that for a second. Predominantly black,
Let me fix my face.
predominantly black school district, meaning the bulk of the majority of the students that they serve are children of color, and not just African American children, children from the African diaspora, actually, a high number of Hispanic students as well, Asian students, you name it. And the charge is that they are violating Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, which prohibits employment discrimination based on race. And they have gone so far as to request a federal investigation into KCPS's hiring practices. That's what we are dealing with in this moment, in
Yeah.
this political climate. So, what are the key legal and ethical questions? Question number one: what does federal law say about race based hiring? Well, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 says there is a prohibition, or they prohibit discrimination in hiring, including race based quotas. However, affirmative action and diversity initiatives are legal if they do not impose rigid racial quotas or disadvantage other candidates solely based on race. So the legal question, and I hope counsel for the district moves in this direction, is does KCPS's hiring strategy cross this line? And I would hope that they would argue that it does not.
It does not. Because remember, you all, what Katina just shared with us when speaking with someone from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education for the state of Missouri, we are at a teacher crisis. We're at a teacher shortage crisis, right? And so, if we're at a shortage that is critical, acute, why would we think that broadening and expanding our recruitment retention, and sustainability methods would be something that anyone would fight against. When we have the data that suggests that all children benefit from being educated by Black teachers and brown teachers, why would we try to interrupt that?
I don't know. I don't have an answer. But I think when we learn more about
remember, I'm trying to be objective.
when we share more about Parents Defending Education, PDE, then we get to the crux of it, right? So, but let's get through these questions first. So then we talk about the role of diversity in education, right?
Yes.
So as you just pointed out, which I think you went down that, I'm not even gonna go there. Except that I think there's a key question here. How do schools balance, I think you said that maybe, balance diversity efforts with legal hiring practices? Because there has to be a balance.
Yes.
If the data and the research, which we're often challenged and told that we need to make sure we're data driven, right? If it tells us that our students do better, all students do better with educators of color when they're in the classroom, then we certainly have to put policies in place to ensure that we have the educators that we need. So then the next question is, well, what are the perspectives from both sides, right? We want to present a balanced viewpoint, okay? So I hope you still got me, Cecilia?
I still got you. We still here.
Okay.
Ooh, Katina, you froze.
There, am I there? You see me? Okay, great.
I was going to say, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready.
That's okay. So, what are the perspectives from both sides? So, PDE argues that KCPS's plan sets numerical hiring goals based on race, which they claim is discriminatory. They believe all hiring should be race neutral and merit based.
When we're thinking about this, you all remember the percentage of what we said of teachers in public schools in the United States are, and I think the last time they did this was in 2022. They typically do it every 2 years or so, so it'll be coming back up. Was in 2022, 84% of public school teachers were white. The demographics for KCPS very much mirror our national demographics. They're about 70% white in KCPS. And so 70% white in KCPS, when we have students and their families are 87%, I believe that's the number, 87% folks of color, students of color and their families in KCPS.
Yes, absolutely. So then the district should be arguing, I hope that they do, that it's not using quotas, but setting goals to address teacher diversity gaps, which you just addressed, and that the strategy is really about expanding the teacher pipeline, not excluding candidates based on race.
And also providing representative teachers for the bulk of KCPS students and their families.
Absolutely.
It's cultural competency.
Yes. So we let you all know kind of what's happening. We've given you this context. We always want to get to a place where we also share like what could the impact be for parents, for schools, for educators, etc. So we want to, before we get there though, let me give you all a little bit of information. So if you were to go out to the Parents Defending Education, PDE, their website, they generally say that they are a grassroots organization of parents that want to make sure we have high quality schools and kids get what they need, etc., etc., etc. However, if you do a little digging, do a little research, you may find that they really aren't a grassroots organization as they claim to be, but rather they are a well-funded, right-winged advocacy group with ties to conservative networks and dark money sources. So you may say, well, Katina, how you know? Well, I'm glad you asked. Cecilia, I think you know too. So we want to talk about the key figures and funding behind PDE. You want to start with the leadership and the founders?
Sure. Let me go to my notes.
Okay.
Please let me go to my notes. I was looking them up once again, and making sure, because I really do want us to speak clearly,
Yes.
and fact based,
Yes.
and not just from opinion.
Yes.
One of the things that we know is that there has been a movement under Project 2025
Yes.
that has supported more right wing conservative systems change,
Yes.
more right wing conservative movement forward, that supports these types of organizations like PD. PD is not the only one doing this
Right.
across the country. And so that has been helpful to people as they move this forward.
Absolutely. So one of the things, so who is the founders? Nicole Neely. She's the president and founder. Her background includes former positions at conservative organizations such as the Independent Women's Forum and the Cato Institute. Um, sh- she is described as a Koch brothers network alum.
Are
And
we
she,
familiar with the Koch brothers? The Koch
I
brothers
would hope that most people are.
out of
And
Wichita,
she,
Kansas, which has formed most of these ways in our region, and I would say nationally as well.
Mhm.
Conservative movements moving forward. Mhm.
And she has formerly served as the president of Speech First, which is a campus free speech group with Koch connected board members. Interestingly enough, she's an Asian American woman who's, I'll leave that there. I'm not going to provide any additional commentary. I'm just going to say it's very interesting. Remembering that no cultural group is a monolith and everyone has their own brains, their own minds, their own experiences that cause them to adopt the views and opinions that they hold. I will say that the funding and connections for PDE, again, remember they say they are a grassroots parents group. However, their financial disclosures tell a different story.
Yes.
In its first year, which was 2021, PDE raised over $3.1 million.
Will you say that one more time, Katina?
In its first year, which was 2021, they raised over $3.1 million.
And let us talk about why that is important. 2021,
Mm-hmm.
quickly following 2020 and the racial reckoning that was happening in the United States, under a pandemic because of the death and murder of George Floyd. And the counter that happened with many more conservative organizations under the movement that was happening with progressive organizations because of the witnessing of 9 minutes of a murder, of a Black man in Minneapolis.
Absolutely. Now interesting. So they raised $3.1 million in their first year, but only 77,000, so not even 100,000, came from membership dues. While the large bulk, right? Basically in totality, I'm gonna round it off. I'm gonna say they got 3 million from non-member donors.
Yes.
So individuals just wanted to give and support this great organization. They didn't want to hold a membership, but they wanted to ensure they had the funding that they needed. The Project on Fair Representation contributed. Look them up, please. 1.4 million be, in that first year. That may have been their largest donor.
Mhm.
Donors Trust, known as the dark money ATM of the right, that is not my name. That is the name that has been given this organization. Gave 20,250 directly to PDE and earmarked an additional 200,000 through the project of fair representation. So we talk
We're,
about
we're
the
we're
leader.
letting that hang here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we know who the leader and the founder is. We know where their funding and contributions come from. Now let's dig into the affiliations and the network. PDE is connected to several right wing and conservative networks with ties to Leonard Leo's Dark Money Network.
Yes.
PDE has paid Leo Leonard's consulting firm, which is CRC Advisors, at least $100,000 for services. I don't know what those services are. They have been involved in Supreme Court cases alongside other Leonard Leo's groups, conservative groups. And they have collaboration with organizations like America First Legal
Mhm.
as well. So, I was going down a rabbit hole as I was researching this organization and was like, because I was like, what was the motive and why now and why KCPS? And I also, well, we're gonna get to that in a minute. So some of their objectives and tactics have included filing lawsuits and complaints against school districts across the country. So KCPS is not the first. Submitting Freedom of Information Act requests to get the ammunition, or so they think, the ammunition to attack schools and school districts. They have conducted media campaigns against public school boards, and they are generally advocating for expanded school choice and private school enrollment.
Remember
I'm gonna
we
let you
talked about
you go for there. You go for it.
Remember, we talked about, those of you who were with us last week, we talked about, as we were talking about the executive orders that have been coming down from our national administration, from President Trump's office, how it's important that we follow the money and we look at these different things, because one of the things that dismantling or attempting to dismantle the Department of Education, also opening up ways for federal funds to not only go to public schools, but for the first time ever, and that includes charter schools. And we recognize that that charter schools are a part of the public school umbrella. But for the first time ever, these funds will be also eligible to private schools, as well as schools with religious affiliation. So Catholic schools, other schools that have some type of religious affiliation, which tend to be more conservative. Why this was also important for us to understand and know is that oftentimes these large religious private entities, these dark money entities, are then able to fund not only organizations like PDE, but also campaigns of elected officials to further the conservative initiatives moving forward. Why is this important? This is important because when we're looking at our elected officials and how they may, you're back, I was waiting, how they may then influence how federal monies and public monies move forward, it is done so in a way that is not beneficial to all students and their families, and not beneficial in a way that is what people of service, elected officials, are supposed to do. It leans
Yeah.
them towards whatever their agenda is, as opposed to being inclusive and equitable, to solve the problem of disparities that place-based strategies can.
Yeah. One, let me apologize. Technology, y'all. I swear, it is crazy.
Happens sometimes.
I want to acknowledge those that are watching us this evening. So, hey, Miss Wyatt. She's like, wow. Like, I tell you, this information will blow you. Go
I
ahead.
also want to give people a tool, you all. Please put in your strategies in your toolbox an organization called littlesis.org. Littlesis.org is a database that will allow you to put in an organization like PDE, and it will then, through all of its analytics, give you all the connections of the different organizations, entities, businesses, people that an organization like PDE is attached to. When you do that and you go to littlesis.org, you'll then be able to go down the rabbit hole. And as an organizer, and I'm telling everyone, you always want to just trace the money.
Follow the money. Follow the money.
Find the money. And it will tell you whom people are actually attached to. I just want to give that
Absolutely.
a bit.
Yeah, no, I love that. So, yes, you all make sure you utilize that tool when you're doing research. Any organization that you may be interested in learning about, what their motives are, who their funders are, things of that nature, it's extremely important to know because oftentimes then that tells you what the unspoken agenda might be.
Might be.
So again, remember the PDE says it's a grassroots organization, but we know that it is well funded by conservative advocacy groups with strong ties to right wing networks and dark money sources. Its activities are part of a broader conservative effort to influence public education policy and promote school privatization. Now,
So continue doing.
one of the things I wanted to know, Cecilia, though, is like, what has PDE been doing across the country and have they been successful? That was one of the things I wanted to learn more about. And so, what I found out is that they have filed multiple civil rights complaints with the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights. And as of June 2024, you ready? You ready? Y'all ready? They had filed 37 civil rights complaints. In December, they filed a federal civil rights complaint against the Rochester Public School District in Minnesota, alleging discrimination in teacher mentorship program. Uh, in January, just this year, right? Um, they filed a complaint against the Community Unit School District 308 in Illinois regarding race-based affinity group programming. And back in May 2021, they filed complaints against school districts in Webster Groves, Missouri, Hillsborough, North Carolina, as well as Hopkins, Minnesota. So they are, again, coast to coast, looking at attempting to find out what is happening in schools and school districts that perhaps may be low-hanging fruit for them to go after and move their agenda forward. I will say that they have also initiated lawsuits in Linn-Mar Community Schools, which is in Iowa, over parental exclusion and compelled speech policies. They settled a lawsuit against Wellesley Public Schools in Massachusetts, ending race-based affinity groups created by students and modifying a bias reporting procedure. They sued a district in Ohio over compelled speech related to preferred pronouns so that teachers do not have to address students by their preferred pronouns, and an Iowa school district regarding policies on students' transgendered status. So those are the formal legal things that they have done thus far. Some of the other actions They filed a complaint against Newton North High School in Massachusetts in October 2023. They quote unquote exposed and challenged various district policies and programs, leading to changes in dozens of districts across the country. So these actions certainly demonstrate that PDE has been consistently filing claims and taking legal action against schools, school districts across the country, focusing on issues only related to race-based policies, free speech, and parental rights in education. Thoughts? Remember facts.
Yeah. It is always interesting to me whenever any person, organization, or entity feels like their opinion, their value, their self-interest is more important than mine or someone else's. Like, who gets to decide? And who gets to decide how these types of things move forward? And how is it always aligned and proximate to money and power?
Mm-hmm. Ooh.
So,
Wow, the deep questions to consider, think about. Good evening, Dewan Shepherd. We are glad you are tapping in. It looks like you've tagged someone else to say, hey, jump in and have this conversation. We welcome everyone. We want all the information, any feedback.
and we welcome varied opinions from our objective opinions, right? We want
Absolutely.
feedback from everyone.
Yeah, I mean, you all could be subjective. Our goal here really is to give you facts, information, data, etc., so that you then can think critically about how you move forward as you address elected officials, school districts, whether you support them or not. And if parents, community members organize around these things, then if these things reach litigation, oftentimes you have an opportunity to file what's called an amicus brief, right? So you as a community can speak to the impact of proposed policies, and how this court case may or may not affect you in a positive way and or a negative way. So just want you all to be aware, have this information. When I got this news article, I was shocked. I had no idea that this was happening, and I was like, whoa, let's get to it. So what does this mean for you all as parents, as educators, as schools, as community members? Well, one, for parents, you have to ask yourself, will this investigation impact the hiring of teachers at KCPS? And it absolutely could.
It could.
What does this mean for the education or the quality of education your children receive? Well, remember, we already told you the data. Children perform well. All children perform well, better when teachers of color are in the classroom.
Yes. And I think from a perspective of the types of issues that parents defending education go after, suggest that they are not concerned about the education and the support of all students in their families. Some students in their families, for sure, but not all students in their families.
And there could be, when we did college admissions exams and things like that, law school exams like the LSAT and things like that, we had to like cause and effect analogies and all the things, right? And so when I think about this attack on the diversity of teaching staff, and the saying that, well, we don't think we need to diversify. We want to ensure that teachers are given an opportunity and it should just be merit-based. Are we saying then the opposite of what the research and the data tells us is that if we diversify our workforce, we'll have less qualified teachers in the classroom?
And who are, to be quite honest, parents defending education, who are they to say that their opinion, their shared values, their self-interest are more relevant, important, true, valid than the data that we have from our leading educational organizations and entities across the nation and across the world, to be quite
And
honest.
have been consistent for many, many, many
Have been
years, decades,
so
decades. So for educators in schools, you have to ask the question, how will this affect teacher recruitment and retention in Kansas City public schools and beyond?
and beyond, because they're
Because
all over the
other
place.
districts will be watching this, right?
Yes.
And they will then attempt to focus on educating children versus having to deal with litigation, right? Do we want our resources going to litigation or to educate children? Whole nother question, right? Could this change how other districts approach hiring diverse staff? Absolutely. We just said that. And for the community, what role should local communities play in shaping hiring policies? I think we all should have input, but that's again my viewpoint. Should there be a balance between legal compliance and educational diversity efforts? I'd say yes.
Yes.
Why not? That makes the most sense, right? So as we wrap up, we always want to close out by giving a call to action, closing remarks, and things like that. So the question really is, where do we go from here? Well, this is an ongoing issue, and KCPS will likely respond as the federal process unfolds. I do hope there's some transparency there. I do know that oftentimes, and which is smart, and any lawyer would tell you, is that oftentimes when you have open investigations, litigation, etc., going on, you often want to be very careful about what you say publicly. But I do think it's important for KCPS to let the community know how they are responding in some way. They
And I think
change,
it's very important too. I think it's also very important too, Katina, as you know, you helped us dive deeper into PDE and whom they are, and recognizing who are PDE's grassroots folks in Kansas City.
mm, mm,
Who are, as this opens up, right, as KCPS is exposed, how will the grassroots folks who are a part of this, because as I delved into their website, it says at the bottom, hey, do you have a tip? And so evidently someone had a tip
whew,
about Project 2030
yes,
and KCPS that they shared with Parents Defending Education. And so
yes.
who are the folks who in here in Kansas City that think that this would be harmful for our students, or maybe not harmful, but unfair? Who are the folks that feel like that it's not being merit based if you have goals towards diversifying and being more representative of the children that attend Kansas City public schools? Who are you?
Ooh, now that's something. Who are you?
We'd love to be in relationship with you. We'd love to
Absolutely.
be able to have robust, informed conversation, dialogue, perhaps even debate
Yeah.
about why this is important. And I would say, I guess one of the questions that I would ask is, why does one have to be in the shadows? KCPS isn't in the shadows. So why is the organization that is bringing this against KCPS, why is it in the shadows as far as the grassroots folks that are
Yeah.
here in Kansas City?
Woo. Well, I'm gonna let that sit right there. We invite you, if you are in the shadows, to come into the light. Again, we invite you to join us here on Policy Pulse. the education edition, to talk about your thoughts and why you thought it was necessary to provide a tip to PDE and for PDE to move forward with a complaint at the federal level. We'd love to hear your thinking. We are teachers, we are lifelong learners, and so perhaps there's something we may be missing, or
Absolutely.
that our viewers or community may be missing. So we'd love to hear from you. And if you want to reach out to me, feel free. dreamsconsultingkc@gmail.com at
If
any
you would like to
time.
reach out to me, buildingjustsystems@gmail.com. We are advocates, champions for learning. So we'd love to
Yes,
learn.
absolutely.
In the words of the venerable Nancy Wilson, famous, we're in Black History Month, jazz singer, teach me tonight. I would love for you to teach us, PDE, grassroots folks here in Kansas City.
All
Teach us.
right. So where do we go from here? Again, this is an ongoing issue. Again, we hope that KCPS will respond as the federal process unfolds. But no matter where you stand, being informed and being engaged is key. So
It's
for
key.
parents, I want you to attend board meetings. If you haven't been going, go. You don't have to attend them in person. You certainly can attend them virtually because they are live streams. I love that. Ask questions about the current hiring policies, the strategies that are being used to diversify the teaching staff, and the data and research. How many teachers in the district are uncertified or long-term subs? How many vacancies do they have? Things like that really inform us and tell us kind of it. You don't have to hear Cecilia continue to tell you we are in a crisis in terms of teaching staff. Ask those questions and you will get the numbers for your district, your school.
Also, as well in the same way that Parents Defending Education has started a grassroots movement, so can you.
Absolutely.
So can you. There are all types of avenues, and Katina gave organizations, entities at the top of our show of where you can get more information, move with more like-minded people, or if you are parents of a Kansas City Public School student, or if you're a community member situated in the boundaries of Kansas City Public Schools, hop on their DAC, that is the District Advisory Committee, or their SAC, which is the School Advisory Committee. Connect with organizations like Latinx Education Collaborative. Connect with organizations like Black KC, that's spelled BLAQUE KC. Connect with organizations like Teachers Like Me, or organizations like Black Brothers Liberating Our Communities, and have robust conversation. Parent organizations like, what does PLTI stand for, Katina?
The Parent Leadership Training Institute.
Or organizations like Parent Power Lab, or your
Yes.
school parent organization or community organization. We, not we, others can organize as well, like Parents Defending Education.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure that our local Urban League, I'm sure that our local NAACP may get involved in this particular issue. The Urban Summit. There are other organizations, perhaps the National Black United Front. There may be some other organizations across the city that will get involved in this conversation. And they
Organizations
certainly
like
will be, yeah, they will be
Guadalupe
monitoring
Yes.
what's going on for sure. For
Absolutely.
educators, remember you are currently employed. How will your employment be impacted as you seek to level up? Perhaps go after that next rung on your professional ladder. It may impact you. Follow this. Get engaged. Don't. And I know we have a lot to do when we're just in the four walls of that classroom or the four walls of that school building teaching children. You know, your feet are to the fire, hitting that pavement every day, but you can't let ignore these things either because they may directly impact you. And of course, for community members, keep an eye on this case, its potential impact beyond Kansas City Public Schools. So if you're in Wyandotte County, if you're in Grandview, if you're in Raytown, if you're in Hickman Mills, if you're in Lee Summit, Blue Springs, Belton, Raymore,
North Kansas City,
North Kansas City, etc.
Park Hill,
Please, yes, please, Independence, please keep an eye out on what may be happening. So, with that being said, we are wrapping up tonight's Policy Pulse Education Edition. I hope that this was helpful, and if it was, share it with someone who needs to be a part of the conversation.
A part
We
of the
will
conversation.
see you next Thursday, same time, same place.
And what is our tagline, Katina?
Stay informed, stay engaged, and always stay active.
Ahead.
Yes.
All right,
So that's what we have for you all. Have a good night. Thank you.
Have a good
Bye.
weekend. Bye.